Okay, let's do some role plays. We're going to focus on person-centered therapy. I'll give a quick review of person-centered therapy because some people haven't studied it yet. Others have already done their prac and have moved forward from PCT, and others are about to do it.
Hey, thanks.
The reason I think it's useful for even new students to look at the PCT techniques is because in a lot of ways it forms the basis of all the counselling techniques and all of the counselling frameworks you look at, or at least it provides some general counselling skills. What we'll do is, I'll go through a quick review of it, then we'll sit down and we'll do some role plays. We might have the same client and switch out, as Gita suggested a couple of weeks back. I think that'll work because then people can be watching the same client and consider how they might do things slightly differently or how they might deal with this client. For those people who don't know, the basic theory of person-centered therapy is that if the therapist is successful in conveying genuineness, unconditional positive regard and empathy, then the client will respond with constructive changes in personality organisation. I didn't modify it because it's a direct quote from the readings of the old study guide.
Oh, I think I did read a bit of the new book on it.
Okay.
I've got the book on it, so I'm just
All right.
reading on it.
Well, that's from Cassini and Wedding anyway. And basically what it's getting at is this. Person-centered therapists, traditional person-centered therapists, are not in any way trying to influence the client. All the counsellor wants to do is to convey that they're genuinely concerned with the client's issues, that they're genuinely trying to understand things from the client's perspective and validating the client. These feelings that you're feeling now are valid, they're understandable, I can see where you're coming from, I can see why you're feeling the way you do. And the whole purpose of this is for the client to feel validated, and then if they're in this environment where they can be themselves and express themselves and be honest with their feelings, then maybe they'll grow. Maybe the shackles will be taken off and they can grow as a person, as an individual, and genuinely be themselves, I guess. All right? So it's tricky though. It's tricky because here you are as the counsellor and you're not trying to direct the conversation, you're not trying to direct the client in any way, and you're not trying to come across as an expert on the client's issues. What person-centered therapists are trying to do is to recognise the client as the expert in their own life.
Mm-hmm.
They're the experts. They know what they feel and how they feel it. They just need a safe environment to express themselves and to explore.
And how to deal with it.
Good, yeah, exactly. Okay, so here are some things to remember about PCT. It forms the basis of much of what we study here, even when we apply other frameworks. It's probably not a stretch to think that if we know how to convey empathy and feel empathy for a client, that's valuable with any counselling framework or any therapeutic framework. Being genuine is probably applicable with any other framework as well. So PCT is kind of like a foundation you can build on with other therapeutic frameworks that you come across or study later.
Mm-hmm.
Some more than others. It is likely you will use PCT as part of an integrative approach. Just like many of the other theoretical frameworks you'll study, there's a good chance you won't just apply that framework. As a general counsellor, you'll probably integrate frameworks. So even though today we're going to focus mostly on trying to be traditional person-centered therapists, We're only doing that because your prac requires you to later in the diploma, so it's good to practice now. But in real life, you might include techniques from other frameworks.
Mhm.
And if we get in the role plays and you find yourself asking questions that you think, well, hang on, this is probably, I'm moving into solution focused here, I'm moving away from PCT, that's okay. It's okay if you're applying an integrative approach, just try to bring it back to traditional PCT.
Now, when you say traditional PCT, are you talking about absolute person-centred, and even when they try to go off onto other people and what they think literally to bring them back to person-centred, or are we talking a little bit more relaxed?
I would, well, a little bit more relaxed. I would focus if the client wants to speak about those things, letting,
Okay,
because you're focusing on letting the client share his feelings.
all right.
If you start directing him back to himself, then there you go. You're directing the client when it's supposed to be the client.
But
who's directing.
PCT is based on the fact that it is just about the client.
It's
what the
client
feels
focused. It's all
these
about the client.
situations.
Yeah. So if he does start talking about his wife, chances are he's expressing feelings in relation to that relationship.
Right.
So focus on those feelings because there is, aren't there?
Mm.
So
But
I
if
see
the
what you're
client
saying.
starts talking about how his wife feels,
yeah, well, that's up to you. But I would personally ask him how that makes him feel, or I reflect back the feeling that I'm getting
just
from
bring it
his
back to him by
expressions.
how does that make you feel about it?
Yeah, or it sounds like you're irritated by that. Okay. For your prac, you take a traditionalist approach, so you are expected to not direct the conversation in any way. So practice that here, but if you feel like you want to take an integrative approach somewhere along the line, feel free. What? No, that's miserable. What am I, 2 years old? For the prac today. For the prac today, we'll give priority to traditional PCT. If you move slightly in an integrative approach, that is fine too. All right, but how do we do it? How do you apply PCT? If you're looking for PCT techniques, it doesn't really get any more specific than this. You're trying to convey congruence or genuineness. You're trying to convey that you're genuinely concerned for the client, you're genuinely trying to understand things from the client's perspective, you're not in any way patronising them, you're genuinely interested and care and feel that their feelings are valid. Unconditional positive regard, actually these are all integrated, so I'm kind of repeating myself over and over. Unconditional positive regard, the client, let the client know that you feel that what they're saying and feeling is valid. And empathy, again, you're concerned for the client, you're concerned for the issues, you genuinely want to understand things from his or her perspective. They're all integrated and all related. But how do you do these things? I'll give you some tips and we'll leave them on the board for the role play. Your aim is to actively listen with an emphasis on listening. Don't try to avoid sitting there thinking about what question you'll ask next, because if you do that, you may decide on a question that's taking the client away from where they are now. Actively listen with a focus on listening. That way when the time comes for you to say or do something, you make the decision there and then so that you're not directing the client away from where they are. Basically, it's all about the client. The client's got the control. Show the client that you're trying hard to understand these issues from the client's perspective. But how do you do all this without coming across as patronising? How do you do it without coming across as just telling the client what they want to hear or just faking?
I was going to ask the same question.
Okay. These will be the techniques you fall back on. Paraphrasing, reflection of feeling, and reflection of content. Think of it this way, or this is the way I think of it anyway. You've got a client in front of you. You're working hard to understand this puzzle. You're working hard to understand things from this client's perspective. So as you sit there listening, keep asking yourself, what's his client feeling, thinking, I'm trying to understand this, I'm trying to understand this. And mostly what you'll do to check your understanding of things is paraphrase. You reflect back what they've said. You reflect back the content of what they said, and importantly, you reflect back their feelings. And even if you slightly get it wrong, you've misinterpreted, the client will probably let you know. And that's not, there's nothing wrong with that if you get it wrong, because in the end, what you're trying to do is understand this puzzle. You're trying to understand this person from their perspective.
It's like a jigsaw, you're trying to put it together.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're doing that, if you're paraphrasing, reflection of content, reflection of feeling, these things will take care of themselves. The client will see that you're genuinely concerned, that you're genuinely trying to understand. They'll see that you think their feelings are valid.
I think they are the very, very foundation of counselling.
Right.
The first three ones.
Yes.
They are the very foundation of counselling.
Exactly.
And without them, you will never be able to achieve anything. Unconditional positive regard and empathy. Without the client believing that that they are part of you, those things,
Yes.
you will never achieve anything.
Yes, exactly. And that's why we're doing it today. Because even if you haven't come up to PCT yet, these are skills you can use
That's right.
from now onwards. Okay, does anybody have any questions? In a lot of ways, when you do your prac, it'll be the easiest prac you do because you don't have to apply specific techniques, even though you do. And that's what makes it hard, because you're trying to avoid, and I better put that up as well. Your questions, any questions you ask should really focus on what the client is saying and feeling at the moment, or what they're talking about right now. If you ask a question that takes them away from what they're talking about right now, you're directing the conversation, and it's probably a case that you're trying to integrate some other technique. So that's why you don't want to make up your questions before the client stops sharing. But you always fall back on paraphrasing first anyway. Okay, any questions?
No.
No? Do you want?
I noticed that we cannot steer the client.
That's right.
We cannot,
Thank you.
we cannot, so we cannot tell him what to do so many times in my studies. I
Yes.
noticed that we cannot tell him what to do.
Yes, that's
But
right.
What is wrong if you are giving him sort of a little bit, because when they come to you, they are lost.
Yes.
They are completely lost.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do, they don't know any which way they has to go. And here we are sitting here paralyzed, so we cannot say to them
Yeah.
what to do or just
Okay.
a little advice.
I see what you're saying. And from the get-go, you taught counselling's not about giving advice. And that's true to an extent. As you'll see when you study other frameworks, there is actually teaching components to different frameworks. But in the end, you've got to think of it like this. You may want to tell the client what to do, but if you do that without knowing the client inside out first, you may sway them to make decisions they're not ready for.
That's it.
So the goal of the counsellor, before you even move into any sort of advice giving, even though you're trying to avoid it, there is room in counselling for you to discuss advice. You're going to spend sessions getting to know the client first. And in the end, you want them to make a decision. So it's your job to help them explore possibilities and options.
But also too, if you sway the client to make the wrong decisions,
Yeah.
you're going to get sued. Because they could go out and do something really, really stupid.
Yeah.
And it reflects, it comes back on you because you neglected your duty of care and you said something and they've
That's why when you suggest something, you
misconstrued
turn
it.
around and
It's
say,
not-
this is just a suggestion. You
Mm.
don't have to take this. This is me personally. What you do is you take
When-
away, without turning around and going, this is my qualification talking, you take away that. So if you turn around and say, this is me personally, this is just a suggestion, this is an
Yeah.
idea, you can pretty much take the
That's
legality out of
right.
it.
It doesn't mean that I'm forcing. It's coming in the form of question.
Okay.
What do you think
Yes.
of having your children and so on? So what do you think of talking to your partner this way?
Okay.
I wouldn't expose on him or
Right.
impose on him to do this or to do that. It is coming in a form of question. What do you think of talking to your partner in so and so way?
That's true. And, and
That's-
questioning is a good way of being less directive.
Yeah,
And even if it's not a legal thing, Jenny, you might suggest something that hurts a relationship and then they
Yeah.
can come back on you anyway, even if it's not a whole legal thing. But when it comes down to it though, if you're trying to influence the client or if you're trying to get them to consider alternative options, you want to kind of do it in a way that it ends up the client
Had that
thinking
idea.
about things and the onus is on him. He or she makes the decision. So you want to explore a range of options rather than just offer one to look at,
So you'd
because
rather,
chances are they're just going to pick
like
that.
brainstorm rather than give
Yeah,
advice.
exactly. Before you even say, have you considered talking to your partner about this, you would ask, have you considered how you might overcome this problem? And see what options they throw out there.
Have you discussed it?
Wouldn't you find that people, once they talk about things and you're sort of paraphrasing it back to them, that they're coming up with their own,
That's the whole point.
That's exactly what PCT is.
That's what it is.
you wouldn't have to give them options or.
That's exactly right.
Because I know if I'm talking to clients on the phone, and I've noticed this a lot, that I've just listened to them and they just take over the phone conversation basically. I don't give any suggestions or
Okay, good.
anything like that.
Good.
Because it's
that's-
technically, in the long run, it's up to them.
Do you want to give it a go? We've got a client and he's going to play the role of the client for the whole time and we'll switch in and out, 5 minutes each. Who would like to go first?
Who's the client?
Who's the client?
The client's Jonathan. We've discussed it
As long
generally
as
his
it's not Corey,
situation. But we're not going to give you a heads up on what the client's case or issues are because you want to explore it.
Don't worry, I'll channel Corey.
so are you the client?
He's the client.
You
So,
are the client.
Jonathan, you head here.
And just go in a circle.
Oh, if you
Kathy,
want to, yeah, we could switch
just
out
go.
every couple of
But
minutes.
Kathy, you first.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got to go first and I'll go second.
Hang on.
Let's let Laura go first.
We've just discussed that.
Oh, you did? Oh, I noticed.
Bottom line is, don't say anything until the client stops sharing and say as little as possible, really.
So what are we meant to cover? Do you want us to do the first bit or just start it off?
Do you want a doodle pen?
Just start with exploring the issues.
I can't do
You've gone
that.
through confidentiality and all that. And just so you know, you're being recorded too. Alright?
Thanks. Alright, Dylan, so we've gone through everything. Skip that whole thing. So what's actually brought you here today?
My wife actually suggested that it would be good for me to come and talk to someone about the way I've been feeling. I've been very just down, I suppose.
If you guys could just raise your voices so that people are back in here.
Okay, so what have you been going about?
Just life in general. The rat race kind of thing. It's not feeling any joy.
So what do you think you can get from coming out of counselling? What would you like to achieve?
I really don't know. It's, I don't see how just talking about it is going to change anything in my life, because I've got to provide for my family, so I have to go to work, and work's not very satisfying, but it's got to be done, and all my time gets eaten up by the family.
So you feel like coming here would be taking the small time up that you have that right?
Well, not so much that, it's just I don't see how it could change anything. You know, I don't mind trying it. Yeah. I don't see how it's going to affect my life.
Alright, so why do you think your wife's leaving you?
Because she sees that I'm getting unhappy. She wants me to work on myself and try and get back to the way that I was, you know, enjoying life.
Do you feel like you're unhappy?
Yeah.
Would you like to go into that?
It's just I don't, you know, I go out for dinner or you know, family functions and stuff, and I don't feel engaged anymore. You know, everything just feels flat. I don't get excited about anything. Yeah, and the kids, they want to do stuff, and you know, they want to play with their dad, and you know, and I can't be excited for that, and it makes me feel bad as well. So
What parts of that make you feel bad?
that I'm not providing for them the way I should be.
Okay, do you want to switch it? You did really well. Really well.
Okay.
What's his name? What's your name?
Max,
Max.
I'll be Max.
So what would the heading in?
Why he's here?
Yeah.
I tell you what, Kathy, why don't you
Just
come
sit
in?
there and find out.
Just
That's
bloody
okay,
why.
even if you're repeating some of the same stuff,
So we've got a
Start
non-directed
fresh,
person who won't
and that
talk.
way you're not influenced.
Okay.
Alright.
So, hello.
Hi.
What can we do for you today?
It's okay.
He's going to go through counselling like 6 times today.
I really don't know what you can do. You know, my wife sent me, or asked me to come and try and work out why I've become so unhappy.
So, what do you feel about your wife sending you to?
Louder, honey. Louder.
What time? Excuse me. So, how do you feel about your wife sending you here to the therapy?
I know she's only doing it because she's concerned for me.
So, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's a good feeling, I suppose, that she still worries about me.
You don't feel worried about feeling
It's okay. At least project confidence, even if you're not, even if you're a little bit concerned you've lost it. Just project confidence, because even if you're repeating yourself, maybe the client will see that you're trying to dig deeper. So it's okay. You don't want to be fake, but at the same time,
yeah, because I was thinking of
if you come across as uncertain, then it's going to throw everything off. So,
okay.
all right. So just use your instinct. Go with what you've got. It doesn't matter if you slightly deviate from the rules.
Right. So how's your family life?
Overall, it's, you know, pretty good as families go.
And children?
Yeah, 3 children.
Do you enjoy doing things with your children? enjoy that?
Well, that's the thing, I don't really get enjoyment in things anymore, you know. We used to go to the park and stuff, and we still do that, but just, you know, I don't feel anything, I'm just flat.
Right, Kathy, reflect back to him using key words that he's just used. Use key words that he's used.
So you go to the go to the park with the children, but you don't get the enjoyment anymore?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so there's a tip for you. Use the key words that the clients used,
Yeah.
and that may help you with not directing too much.
Reflection, yeah.
Do you want to give someone else a
Yep.
good stuff?
Oh, you're going up.
Oh, Jenny. Oh, in the team. Just have a seat.
I thought you were going in a circle.
Sorry,
Yeah, we'll go
next,
in a circle.
Okay.
We'll let you know.
You can have my tune, then I'll have yours.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Jenny.
That's all right. No, that's cool.
Sorry, Jen.
That's all right. I just want to get away.
You mentioned that your wife asked you to come in,
Yeah.
and so how long have you been feeling like this?
Probably about a year now.
About a year?
Yeah.
Okay. And you feel down? And
Yeah.
Is this all the time, or are there times when you don't feel like this?
It's becoming all the time. Like at the start, it wasn't all the time, and I tried to hide it for a while. But lately, it's all the time. My wife's becoming very concerned. Why?
Can you tell me about the times when you don't feel like that, or what's happening in your life in those periods?
Well, last time I remember being happy was probably a weekend away we had at the beach. Family, you know, I love spending time with the family. I love my family, and I do miss that. I think it's just the pressures of life.
Yeah, so can you say that the time with the family away gives you some happiness, but the pressure and all the work schedule that you have is what's taking its toll on you, is that right?
Yeah.
And so how do you think, how do you think you could work through this? Is there anything that comes up that you think that you could kind of help with getting the happier moments back?
Okay. Very much an integrative approach there, I think. That's fine. It's good work.
Okay, it's me.
Sorry, John.
She can't wait.
I
Sorry.
think,
I can't wait.
I think the easiest way to clear a room is say we'll go in a circle.
Yeah, pretty much.
What happened?
That's all we're gonna have to do.
It's all right, it's all right.
I should have made it clear to them that they didn't have to do it.
All
No,
they
it's
ran.
Anyway.
You scared.
That's right, Jen. Good.
You all right, Jenny?
Okay, so, your wife sent me here because she was worried about, concerned about you,
Yes.
and you said that you liked, spending time at the beach. Would you ever sort of try and, those weekends again where you sort of like feeling happy?
Yes. Yeah, we've tried.
And do your kids miss that too?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we go to the beach still and they love it, so I don't think they're missing out on a great deal. I feel like I'm the one missing out. I can't relax.
So what sort of work do you do?
I'm a delivery driver. My hours have increased lately and having to do more overtime and things like that.
And what do you deliver?
Groceries.
Okay. And what time do you usually finish your work? Usually.
I'm home in the afternoons usually. I start very early in the mornings. But I've had to start earlier in the mornings.
Okay. So somehow we've gotten onto the client's line of work, whether or not the client wanted to speak about that or not. That's
The client
okay.
doesn't want to talk.
Well, that's exactly
No,
right.
just sort of getting to why you sort of feeling why are you under this so much like pressure?
Okay, and that goes to show that it's that it is difficult not to direct the conversation when
His wife
the
has
client's
made
not
him, he's
sharing
feel
much.
depressed,
Yeah,
his
not.
work is overpowering, he's losing all the ability with his children, pretty much.
Okay. As you go forward,
Yep.
focus on the key words the client's giving you.
Okay.
Just listen carefully, and
Yep.
is he, because sometimes they're asking for permission to speak about something without explicitly asking for it. So listen to key words
Mm-hmm.
and paraphrase or reflect back using those key words
Okay.
and see if you can keep the client in control of the conversation.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
That's actually a good point. How would you give a client permission? Because that's pretty much what he's doing when you point that out. How would you tell him to go, apart from, because when you start off you say this is a safe place. Are you allowed to go, this is a safe place?
Oh, yeah.
You're more than happy to.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Of course. Yeah. Alrighty.
Okay. So, with your life at the moment, you said that you told me that you were feeling flat and down
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. Does it go on like every day? Do you feel it every day?
I am now, yeah. And that's why my wife is worried, and to be honest, I'm a bit worried about it as well.
And how long have you been feeling
Oh, okay. Now, he said, I'm worried about that as well. Maybe he wants to talk about that
Okay, so
worry.
can you talk about that a bit?
Well, I'm just worried that, you know, my life is going nowhere now. I can't really advance in the work that I'm doing. I don't really have the skills or the money to do anything else.
Okay, can we switch out, Jen?
Yep.
Is that all right? I'll take that. His turn anyway.
Doodle.
Next.
Doodle, 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 doodle. Look at all the doodles she's been doing. Look what she's been doing.
Awesome. I'm next.
Hi.
So next, you're saying you can't relax, you're doing too many hours. Tell me more about that.
It's just getting up earlier and being more tired at the end of the day. And, you know, it's a bit extra money, but it's still not getting us out from under our debts.
And that's really worrying you?
Yeah. It's something that doesn't seem